that's kind of our mindset, in that we pick up from best practices from everywhere, and then we get to bring them right back home and implement them in our business.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast, helping appraisers increase their efficiency, quality, and make more money. Here's the guy who makes it his life's mission to create value for real estate appraisers nationwide. Your host and the Appraiser Coach, Dustin Harris.
Welcome back, my friends, to the Appraiser Coach Podcast. Good to have you with me. I want to pause here and remind you that we are sponsored by three great companies. Of course, OREP Insurance being one of them. OREP is where you should be for your E&O. Check them out. Go to orep.org. datamasterusa.com is where you go to find out if they are in your area. If they are, folks, what are you waiting for? datamasterusa.com and Alamode. Alamode, of course, is the software that I've been using for years and years and years. You should be as well. It's alamode.com or 800-ALAMODE. I want to introduce you once again to my good friend, return guest here on the Appraiser Coach Podcast, has his own podcast, the Real Value Podcast. His name is Blaine Feyen. Blaine, welcome back to the program, my friend.
Thank you, my friends. A great honor to be here. Thanks for having me back.
It is so awesome to be here. One of the fun things about rubbing shoulders with Blaine is we have an opportunity to do different things together, and this podcast being one of them. And we do have quite a cross pollination, I would guess, of individuals that listen to this podcast, listen to your podcast, or you've got the Real Value Coaching Academy, CoachBlaine.com, and a lot of my clients are your clients. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And as we just did a webinar together just before this, and as I mentioned, and always will, anybody comes across my, an opportunity to jump into our coaching, I always tell them that at bare minimum, you got to go to theappraisercoach.com and
that's awesome.
Join Dustin's as well.
In kind, one of the things that's interesting when I do onboarding with clients, one of the things that I strive to, and it's very rare that I miss this opportunity, is to say, listen, I'm not the only coach out there, and you need to look at some of these other coaches out there, including Coach Blaine, and find out if he's a better fit for you. And I mean that sincerely, because we each know what we know, and what I emphasize is a little bit different than what you emphasize, and what you teach is a little bit different than what I teach, and I want to make sure that people get the right info.
Yeah, as do I. And a huge shout out to you, Dustin. I mean, you've been doing this a long time. Everybody knows the Appraiser Coach, and you didn't have to give these opportunities to anybody to come on your podcast, but you were one of the first people to reach out, half a year into my podcasting, and say, hey, come on. And I really appreciate that. And it's struck up a friendship, and we've been friends ever since. So
thank you. I have to say this, and I know I told you this the first time I called you. I don't see us as competitors. I've never seen us as competitors. I feel strongly that there are principles of truth out there. There's not one coach for everybody. And it's an opportunity, I think, to share in the joy of learning true principles that will, my ultimate goal is to help appraisers to be the very best they can be. And guess what? Sometimes that's because they go to somebody like you and not myself.
Yeah, agreed. You and I both feel the same way.
That's awesome. So, this is a great setup for where I want to go with today's podcast is, you and I kind of have a unique situation where, for good or bad, we have an opportunity to kind of be at a 5,000 foot view level of what's going on in the appraisal world, evaluation professions, and as part of our coaching, as part of our membership groups, we get an insight, I think, into the minds of appraisers that many people unfortunately don't get. And I think some of the aspects that some appraisers get, if you will, is, online. We're in a social media world. There's lots of appraiser groups out there that people join. You're very active on many of those, 100% appraisers being one of them, the positive adjustments being another. But even in those groups, we don't really get the intimate information that as a coach, both one-on-one and in mastermind groups and group calls and webinars as we did today, we don't get the insights that, or we do get the insights rather that many appraisers don't. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we're both in unique positions. We've of course put ourselves in those positions, thankfully so. But I feel very, very blessed to have the vantage points that we do, to talk to the great appraisers that are in our groups and our shared groups, and to see, it's true in everything, right? It's true in politics, it's true in religion, it's true in any affinity group that you might be a part of, that if you really want to grow, you have to make yourself open to other points of view. And you and I get those points of view in spades. We get to hear all of them. And I know you're the same as me in that we remain open to having our minds changed quite often.
Yeah. Wouldn't you agree that many times when you're in a coaching situation, you walk away with something new that you hadn't even thought of before?
I say it all the time. It's one of the greatest benefits. I almost feel like I'm cheating sometimes because we get exposed to, I mean, I have no loss of pride in saying some of the coaching members in our group, and it would be true maybe in yours as well, they have things figured out that you look at and you go, well, gosh, I hadn't thought of that. That's awesome. And then we get to try it and implement it in our business.
Yeah, that's the other cool thing is on the, you know, I don't remember if it was before the webinar or during the webinar, you and I were talking about the sandbox idea.
Yeah,
this idea that I am an appraiser, but I'm also a coach. Well, I can go to a mastermind meeting in Dallas and within 2 days implement a new system in my own coach or in my own appraisal business that will transform the way that I do things. And I mean that. I mean, I use that word transform a lot, and people probably think I overuse it. But I mean, a small thing can transform the direction of your appraisal office, and you can get that from so many wonderful appraisers out there.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, I was fortunate enough to learn this in the martial arts industry and coming up in the martial arts, traveling around the world, and you're being exposed to teachers from all around the world. Not only are you picking up all this stuff from these teachers, but my teacher forced us to be exposed. He didn't try to keep us, you know, locked up in his dojo, as it was called. And hey, you can't check out other teachers. He said, no, I want you to be the absolute best. He said, as a sensei, as an instructor, the highest honor for me would be for you to exceed me as a martial artist. And the only way to do that is for you to be exposed to as many teachers as you can around the world.
Love
and
it.
so we got to travel and learn and see. And I've again been fortunate, I think you too, where that's kind of our mindset, in that we pick up from best practices from everywhere, and then we get to bring them right back home and implement them in our business.
Yeah, I absolutely love where you're going with this. Would you agree with me? And if you don't, say it. Right, I'm not trying to lead you down the primrose path here to the answer that I'm looking for, but there's a big difference, I think, between. In fact, let me set this up this way. My daughter asked me. I don't remember if it was last night or this morning. Asked me how many appraisers there were nationwide, and I gave her a number. She goes, "That's quite a bit." She says, "How many are in your all-star team?" And I gave her. She goes, "Well, that's not very much." And I said, "Well, you know, comparatively, you're probably right, but the key here is my demographic does not include 90% of the appraisers out there, right? I'm not going after the individual who's been doing this 32 years, likes what they do. And when I say likes what they do, likes their system, is not willing to change their system. They may not like what they do, but they're not open to change. I'm looking for opportunity to share with clients, if you will, or other appraisers who are open to that. And if you look at that, you know, there's a totally different ratio there. Here's my question, Blaine. In general, I'm not talking about the people that are in my group, that are in your group, and the listeners to this program for the most part. I'm talking about in general. What is the mindset of the typical appraiser today? Is it a positive or negative one?
Well, yeah, I think we both say it in our podcasts and we see it. I think overall there is a strong negativity bias in the appraisal industry. I don't know if it's a chicken and egg scenario, if it's that the appraisal industry attracts a highly analytical individual who is maybe ultra conservative and kind of sees things as you know, glass half empty as opposed to glass half full, or if the industry jades them a little bit. I'm not sure the cause and effect or the correlation, but I would say overall there's a tendency toward the negativity or the negative bias in the appraisal industry, which is unique, is interesting for me, because I train and coach in a variety of different industries. We train agents, real estate agents and lenders, and I do some personal coaching, you know, things that you probably do as well. And we interact with other businesses and industries. And the appraiser industry is unique in that regard. You don't quite see the negativity bias in some of the other industries as you do in the. Yeah,
it's true. I've shared the experience on the program before, so I won't go into the detail. But I've been involved in a mastermind group for many years, over a decade now. That is not an appraisal mastermind group. I'm talking about local. We meet in person. Well, not so much right now with COVID, but we have been meeting in person. And we're talking people that own disaster cleanup companies, a pizza franchise owner, you know, a car dealer. You know, lots and lots of different industries are in there, and it is such an interesting dynamic, because on one hand, Coach Blaine, we're talking about principles that are true no matter what. Like, some would say, well, why are you involved in a non-appraiser mastermind? Because guess what? Marketing is marketing regardless of where you're at, and time efficiencies and you know, principles of success are the same no matter what your industry. Right. But what's interesting is having these conversations with others. Unfortunately, okay, and I mean that unfortunately, because I don't think it has to be that way, and I don't want to dwell on the negative. We're going to turn this positive here in a second. But unfortunately, there is kind of a negative bias when it comes to appraisers in the appraisal world. And I agree with you. Maybe it's a chicken egg thing, right? Maybe it is the type of people that are attracted to this type of conversation. But I unfortunately feel like too many of us allow ourselves to get sucked into the groupthink, if you will, which can be negative.
Yeah, I'm glad you used the word allow, because I was just thinking that as I was listening to you say it. I know I can already hear some of the chatter and what the answers would be. The answers would be, well, Blaine, it's because we get beat up. Appraisers are hated by lenders and by realtors. And again, to me, it's a chicken egg thing, because I see those conversations. I mean, we've seen we had this discussion on the Positive Adjustment Show just a few weeks ago, of why so many appraisers tend to hate the very clients who pay all of their bills.
Oh yeah.
Why do you, and then all of the realtor hate and all that stuff. So again, I don't know. I know the answer that they would give. I don't necessarily know. And I know you and I are both great reframers, I call it, where we can look at a situation and kind of reframe it toward the positive, or to, where is the opportunity in this, the silver lining and everything. And if I could teach one skill to anybody, I think it would be that. It would be, where's the opportunity? Asking that question. What am I missing? What don't I see? The author Keith Cunningham talks about this in his book, The Road Less Stupid, excuse me. What don't I see? And what am I missing? And how can I turn this into an opportunity?
Love it. Love it. We're talking with Blaine Feyen, of course, of the Real Value podcast. You can find him at coachblaine.com. Blaine, when we get back from the break, I want to talk to you about the insights. We framed it as, you and I have a unique perspective, and I want to talk about what that means and where the industry is going, and some of the thoughts and the ideas that you're getting from your clients. Of course, keeping confidentialities, but in general, where the appraisal business is going in the next few years. I want to pause here, folks, and remind you that we are sponsored by three great companies. Of course, Alamode is the software that I use every single day, both in the field and at the desktop. It's a wonderful, wonderful combination where I have an opportunity to go out and gather all the information on site that I will need for that appraisal. And by the way, I don't leave the inspection until I have all the pictures. They're all labeled. The sketch, it's all set up properly, and all the data that goes in page one that I can gather on site. I know it's a lot, but I'll tell you, it sure speeds the process on the backside. You don't have to redo that, if you will, when you get back to the office. That's only one of the many benefits of being involved with Alamode. Alamode.com or 800 Alamode. Datamaster, of course, is saving appraisers time, saving appraisers money. Unfortunately, folks, I work in believe it or not, 5 different MLS systems. Only 2 of those allow me to use Datamaster, but you can bet that I use the heck out of Datamaster in those 2. Datamaster USA is saving about 45 minutes per report. You can find them at datamasterusa.com, datamasterusa.com. And finally, OREP Insurance. OREP is the E&O that I utilize. I'm in the process of renewing right now. It's been a breeze. Seriously, the application, I timed it just because I knew I'd have to talk about it. 3.5 minutes from start to finish. That's how easy it was. And they are in the process of shopping it around. They're in the process of getting me the best coverage for the best price. That's the type of people that you're going to be dealing with OREP. If you're with any other E&O, check them out. Go to orep.org. That's spelled OREP.org. And welcome back to the program, everybody. We're talking with Blaine Feyen of the Real Value podcast. Of course, you can find him at coachblaine.com. Welcome back to the program, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
We set this up before the break, where we were talking about this opportunity to have a unique perspective, if you will, where we talk very intimately one-on-one with appraisers across the nation. We've got mastermind groups, we've got other group calls and such, that we have an opportunity to talk with other appraisers about what they're doing, what they're involved in. It gives us a vantage point, if you will. And I want to talk a little bit about that, Blaine. I want to talk a little bit about where this industry is going. Let's ask this. What do you think is the biggest concern right now in appraisers' minds collectively?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest concern in appraisers' minds typically is, of course, will it last? If we can sure. Sometimes knock loose the ones who are like, oh, it's the greatest ever, and guys like you were saying, well, dig your well because it won't last forever. But yeah, it's always a concern of course, AMCs are always a big concern. Bidding for work and not being in control of your business, I think, is probably the underlying main thing. Not being in control.
Right. We talked this morning about time, about energy. What I'm seeing a lot, not necessarily with clients of yours and mine, but because I think they start to learn these principles, the law of delegation and different things that they can do. But I see a lot of overwhelm, especially right now. It's interesting, how the tables turn, as they say. A few years ago, the biggest complaint were fees and volume, and what do we need to do to market, and how do we get this non-lender work? And now we're so busy we can't keep our heads above water.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, absolutely. Yeah. And so as you deal with these coaching clients of yours, when someone comes to you and says, Blaine, I'm dying here. I had 13 orders come in yesterday and I can only accept 2 of them. What am I doing wrong? What can I do?
Yeah, great question. And again, you just got done doing an awesome webinar for our coaching group, and you talked about the billable hours concept. We talk about it all the time as well. One of the most important things I think appraisers need to understand, to grasp this idea of your most valuable hour. I did a podcast not too long ago called How to Make $10,000 in an Hour. Seriously, no joke. That was the subtitle. And it is because quite often we have our noses buried in the appraisal so often throughout the day and the week, that we miss seeing the opportunities where, you talk about on it and in it, working on your your business or in your business. So many appraisers working in their business and bogged down that they rarely get the time, if ever, to work on it. But the on it time is literally your $10,000 hours. That's where you're learning to set up your systems. It's learning to segregate your clients, pick your A clients, your B clients, your C, your D, and fire the E clients.
Mm-hmm.
It's where you're starting to do your P&L numbers, your profit and loss. It's where you're starting to figure out your net per hour or your billable hour. And
I don't have time to do that, Blaine. I'm too busy doing appraisals.
Yeah, we know that's not true for you, of course, but that is the biggest phrase we hear. It's the biggest line we hear from appraisers. And I would tell them, I think you would too. In fact, I've said it many times to our coaching groups is, look at your numbers, look what you're living off of, look what you're surviving on. Can you take a week off? If you could take a week off right now and be okay, pay all your bills, take the damn week off and start and figure out how you're going to delegate, how you're going to systematize. Maybe it's as simple as just hiring your first virtual assistant or in-house assistant, if you will, but delegate, automate, or eliminate essentially all of the things that you should not be doing. You said it in the webinar, and I absolutely live by this rule. If you can pay somebody to do something that is cheaper than what it costs you to do it at your dollars per hour. Now that leads to another problem. Most people don't know what their dollars per hour are. Truly, the real number. They think, well, I can do 2 appraisals in an hour and I bill out this and what. No, listen, you have to know your numbers. Once you figure out what your numbers are, you'll learn your actual dollars per hour. But whatever your number is, it is more likely that it's considerably higher than what you could pay somebody to handle your emails and bidding orders and accepting orders and entering them into A now and all of the other stuff. And there is a long list of things that you can hand off to other people, which will free up your time to work on your business.
Right. And those that are worried about, well, wait a minute, you can't delegate that work. It's my signature. It's my liability. It's, I'm ultimately, yes, you are ultimately responsible. But remember, I mean, in my business, Blaine, I've got a sheet that I, by the way, use almost every time I work on my business. This is the first thing I pull up, and it's called the assembly line. And currently my assembly line has 36 steps. And this assembly line, I know that might offend some people. Well, it's not an assembly line, it's an appraisal, and every appraisal is unique, and you can't treat it like an assembly line. Well, guess what? We do the same stuff over and over and over. Every order has to be accepted. Every order has to be logged in. Every order, we have to look up a legal description. Every order we've got, well, almost every order, we've got to schedule an appointment, right? This is a process that we go through over and over and over again. And the idea, right, that it's not an assembly line, frankly, that's what's probably holding a lot of people back from success, is not understanding that there are systems that they can put in place that they can replicate over and over and over again. But my bigger point here is when I work on my business, I pull that assembly line out, and I like to imagine myself, if you've ever seen Ford versus Ferrari, right? And they're standing up on the catwalk and they're looking down, and he calls and he says, put a halt, and all of a sudden everything just shuts down, right? And everybody looks up, right? I imagine myself up on that catwalk, and you see these appraisals snaking up and down this assembly line, and somebody's putting a bolt on over here, and somebody's twisting a nut over here, and someone's putting the windshield in over there, right? And in the end, you have a pretty nice Corvette that comes off that line, right? But you've got to stand up on that catwalk every once in a while and look down and say, what's working? What's not? Where's my bottlenecks, and how do I fix it?
Yep, absolutely agree. And to give a timely example, in the news up to today was a massive cargo ship that was blocking the Suez Canal for several days. Every time I saw that headline, I was thinking, well, that's appraisers. Appraisers are blocking their own Suez Canal because they are the biggest bottleneck in their own business. They won't get out of their own ways. And you're absolutely right. The ultimate job, we talk about this all the time, and I know you do too. The appraisers have to stop for a moment thinking like appraisers. They got to take off their appraiser hat and put on their business builder hat. The ultimate goal of every appraiser should be to work themselves out of a job, in my opinion. That's just my opinion.
Yep, replace
not every. Yeah, you talked about your demographic not being everybody. 99%, 98%, 97% of the people are not going to call you and I because they're happy, or they don't know any better. They don't know what they don't know, so they don't know to reach out to a coach. But those who do, the biggest job, in my opinion, would be, let's look out 3, 5, 10 years. Let's figure out the path to work you out of your position as appraiser.
Yeah. Just a few weeks ago, maybe you caught it on the Appraiser Coach podcast. I interviewed Matt Friendaway, and Matt came to me 7 years ago. And he walked into the room. The very first thing he said, literally the first thing he said, he might've said hi, but the first significant thing out of his mouth was, I hate being an appraiser, and I'm here to work myself out of a job. And guess what? Several years later, that's exactly what he did. He sold his appraisal business for a significant sum. He's now off doing something that he enjoys much, much more. And again, my point is a couple. First of all, appraisal is not for everybody, right? But the idea that he walked into this coaching system where he had, I believe it was himself and maybe one other assistant at that time. He might have had a trainee, I don't even remember, but very little, right? To build that up to the systems that he was, and that's the key here, right? The systems that he was able to sell on the open market because there was value there. And the biggest value was he was at the point that he was working less than 5 hours a week in his, I'm not kidding, that's not an exaggeration, less than 5 hours a week in his appraisal business every week. He worked himself out of a job, and that's what makes it valuable.
Yeah, and let me tell you the advantage that Matt had. You said it. he said he hated the business. Now that gives Matt an advantage. It's called detachment. One of the things that we try to get appraisers to is the point of detachment, because you said it earlier. They're like, well, no, it's got to be me. I got to be the one doing it. It's a quality and all these other things that I cannot let go of. Well, if you can get to the point where you can let go of that, some of that stuff, and you can oversee, I think the biggest and most important job, the most dollars per hour for most appraisers is to be teacher, coach, trainer, and quality control, overseer of the production line. Where let's put it another way. The worst thing that could happen would be for Dustin Harris to pass away without getting all of what's up in his head and his wisdom, knowledge, and experience out to other people in his organization. So all of those appraisers out there, the SRAs, the MEIs, all the people with all those years of experience, get it out of your head, put it into the 3-ring binder, and start teaching and training others, coaching others to run this business for you. You just walk the line, you keep people motivated, you build culture, you coach, teach, and train. Well, your highest dollars per hour are right there.
Yeah, well, you said it earlier, and too many of us have our heads down. We're the one putting that bolt, on the car. We're the one putting the windshield in. We don't step back enough to work on our business, not just in our business, and that's to our downfall. That's to our detriment. We have an opportunity as a business owner to be able to step back and realize that there is I'm even going to say the word better way to run your appraisal business. And you talk about it. I know there's a lot of change. I really wanted to get into the change that's coming up. We're going to have to have you back, Blaine, because lots of change. The new quote unquote form coming out, and lots of changes with Fannie Mae, and the appraisal industry itself, the modernization of the appraisal world, the valuation world, as they say. There's lots of stuff that you and I can talk about. As we wrap up, my friend, again, tell me where people can find you, where they can find your podcast, because you have some great things to say. People need to be listening to you.
Thank you. Well, I really appreciate that. Of course, we love your podcast. I try not to compete podcast wise, because I love what you're teaching with yours. So my podcast is maybe more business related, where I try to talk about wealth principles, saving your money, building your business, those kinds of things. Not that you don't, but I try to make it available and kind of informational for non-appraisers as well. It's at realvaluecast.com. We do not teach people how to be appraisers on the podcast. We don't talk technical appraising. I say that all the time. You're not going to come to my podcast and learn principles of appraising. We don't talk USPAP and Fannie Mae or any of that stuff. We just talk solid business principles like what you teach.
How boring, not talk USPAP, geez.
Exactly, yeah.
Thank you, my friend. CoachBlaine.com. His name's Blaine Feyen. Thank you, my friend. We'll have you back.
Honored. Thanks for having me.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.